When women support each other, great things happen. Join myself and FCC for Connecting Women in Agriculture, a free 4-part virtual event series celebrating our contributions to the industry and sharing insights to overcome challenges. Each of these 4 sessions highlight a different expert and topic. Gain strategies to help you through adversity, get tips for managing your farm finances, delve into HR practices for family-owned farms, and get advice for transition planning and navigating change. Don't miss your chance to connect. Register today at fcc.ca/events. Hi, I'm Caitlin Dubin, and this is the Rural Woman Podcast. I'm a first-generation farmer who married into agriculture. Born and raised in a city, I was so unfamiliar with where my food came from, but I was determined to figure it out. Through my journey into agriculture, I saw women who were strong but humble, often taking a back seat. To me, these women were leaders who deserved a seat at the table. I created the Rural Woman Podcast to share the voices of women in an industry whose stories often went untold. The rural entrepreneurs who live and breathe their work, full of grit and pride. We come here to share our stories, to be in community with each other, to be challenged and inspired, but most importantly, to be celebrated and to be heard. We may not all live, farm, ranch, or homestead the same, but we are all connected. We are rural women, and our stories are worthy of being told. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Rural Woman Podcast. Today you'll meet Dalia Monterroso. Dalia is a chicken keeper and a popular teacher on the basics of backyard chicken keeping. She speaks and teaches classes on the joy of chicken keeping and is passionate about broadening the community of chicken keepers to be more diverse and inclusive. She is the creator of the website and YouTube channel, Welcome to Chickenlandia, a podcast, Bach Talk, and an online course called Chickenlandia's Backyard Chickens 101. She has also been featured and hosted a TEDx talk, I Dream of Chickens. If you didn't pick up from the bio, we're talking a lot about chickens today and the passion that Dalia has for raising her backyard flock and teaching others to do the same. Before we get to this week's interview, I just want to put a quick tidbit out there to be sure to keep an eye out on the Rural Woman Podcast social media. Join our newsletter list. We will be doing a end of year giveaway that is pretty special. We figured to end out our 5th year anniversary, we should go big or go home. So be sure to follow us on social media at the Rural Woman Podcast, or you can follow me at Caitlin Dubin, and we will be sharing all about the upcoming end of year giveaway for the listeners of the Rural Woman Podcast. We want to celebrate with you and thank you for being here and listening to these incredible stories of rural women. Without further ado, my friends, let's get to this week's episode with Dalia. Dalia, welcome to the Rural Woman Podcast. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
I am so excited to dive into all things chickens with you. I do have to put a disclaimer out here before we get too far. I am not a chicken person. I think they're a little scary and they give me a bit of the creeps, but I low-key secretly want chickens. So this is basically an interview to convince me that I need them.
We're going to get there. We will go there. And I also want to tell you, you are so not alone. There are a lot of people walking around that are either terrified of chickens, get pretty nervous around them, or they just feel like, I don't know if I can do this. So very, very common.
Right. It's always good to know that you're not alone, especially in a rural setting when chickens are basically the gateway drug into any other livestock animal on a farm. So, Before we get too far, Dalia, give us your background. Tell us who you are, where you're from, and what your connection to agriculture is.
Well, my name is Dalia. I'm a backyard chicken educator. I am also known as the president of Chickenlandia. Probably my biggest platform is my YouTube channel. That's where people know me from. I've been teaching people about chickens for 12 years, I think 12, 13 years. Totally came into this world by accident. That's a complete story. We may get into that. And I really like to say my connection with agriculture is that I'm like a liaison between the people in the city and the people that are really out there doing the actual agriculture thing. I want to be the connection between those two places and really help people to understand, especially urban and suburban chicken keepers, help them to understand that they can see their chickens as pets, they can love their chickens, but they can also use that as something that really makes the world a better place. It can be a sustainable practice. It can be something that is healthy for you, that is healthy for your community, for the world. And you can also still really love your chickens. Like, I really love my chickens, but I think it's very important to see them as the natural beings that they are and to kind of hold on to that foundation that this is something that we have been doing, that human beings have been doing. We've been hanging out with chickens. We domesticated chickens literally thousands of years ago. So I want people to remember that. And I think people that are in agriculture, depending on the type of agriculture you're involved in, they understand that. But a lot of people that are just getting into it, it's like they're being introduced to a way of keeping chickens that's actually kind of removed to how it's been done traditionally. So I'm really trying to bridge that gap so that we don't turn this sustainable practice into something that is using up a lot of resources, which is really kind of where it has been going. So I'm trying to stop that train.
For sure. Oh, I love that. I love that you see yourself as that middle person between maybe more of a larger farming scale versus, like you said, the urban person who maybe just is curious about where their food comes from or how it's produced and how they can be a part of that. So I want to jump back and dive into the story of how did you become the president of Chickenlandia? Where did the chicken thing come from? Take us all the way back.
I do say, if my chickens could vote, I feel very confident that they would vote for me. But they can't, so here I stay. So yeah, when I was a kid, I did not lie in bed and think I'm going to be a backyard chicken educator. I'm going to be the president of Chickenlandia when I grow up. I did not think that. I was going to be an actress. I was going to be a talk show host. I was going to be a rock star. I was going to be, a great American writer, all this stuff. And that's really where my life was going. I actually, in my early 20s, I went to Hollywood. I was trying to be a writer there. I wanted to be the next great American filmmaker, the whole thing. And I was really playing that game. So I was there for about 5 years. I met my husband. My husband is still in the entertainment industry, but we can live anywhere we want. Well, not anywhere we want, but we can live in certain areas where it's easy for him to get to a major airport. So we met, we got married, we wanted to have children. And I was like, I really don't want to do this in Hollywood. I don't want to do this in LA. And nothing against LA. It was a lot of fun. Like, yeah, I went to parties. I did like the whole thing. I've met the celebrities and everything. But after a while, it's like, what are really my priorities in life? And I wanted to have a family. So we moved, my husband's Canadian. We were going to move to British Columbia, but instead we moved to Bellingham, Washington, which is like very close to the border. And I had a child. My little boy I think he was about 18 months old. And I was delighted to have this baby. I was so happy to be a wife and a mother, all of that stuff. And I had a very wicked case of postpartum depression. And it was actually pretty severe. And I did not know it at the time. And no one, because of the way mothers are, I don't know if you're a mom or not, but the way that mothers are, we will just soldier through. And so it's like we don't even really know what's going on with us as long as like the child is fed and well cared for, we're not really paying attention to what's going on in our own life. And I was really struggling. And then on top of that, I was mourning the loss of my life dreams. And so I was really in a tough place. And naturally I said to myself, I'm going to get some chickens. And I don't I don't know why. I've thought about it many times. I've told this story I don't know how many times. But it's like divine intervention. Like I didn't really think about it. I just said, oh, I'm going to get some chickens. Like I'm up here, why not get some chickens? And I was in a subdivision. It was kind of like a suburban area. Went to the farm store, got 10 little baby chicks. They were in a bag. They were in like a paper sack. And I brought them home. I had my brooder set up and everything. I'm taking these little baby chicks. This is only the second time I've ever even held a baby chick. I'm taking them and I'm putting them into the brooder one by one. And I will tell you that in that moment, my heart opened and a new dream came in. And really the passion of my life came in. So far, this has been the passion of my life. And I became, for lack of a better word, obsessed with chickens. I talked about them constantly. I just really like dove in. And eventually people started asking me questions. The community college contacted me. They wanted me to teach a class. And then I was like doing seminars. And this was all in the span of like a year. And before I knew it, I was doing a TEDx talk at Western Washington University about chickens. And it was called I Dream of Chickens. And it's really about not just chickens, but the relationship of humankind with chickens, and then also what that means about our relationship with each other. So yeah, that's the story. And now here I am, the president of Chickenlandia. And so Chickenlandia was at some point in this whole crazy journey, my husband and I had a farm store. And this was very early on, in that farm store, there was a section of the store that was called Chickenlandia, and it had that name. That there's a whole story that goes along with that, but that's another thing. But so that's really where that name kind of came up. And then I took it into social media, and it just, at one point I said, oh, I'm the president of Chickenlandia. And then it just stuck. And so here I am.
Oh my gosh. I love this story, Dalia, so much. There's so many pieces to dive into. First, I want to say thank you for being vulnerable with us and sharing about your postpartum depression. It is something that is more common than we know. And it's something that even to this day, women can feel shamed in talking about it and sharing it.
And I do want to say, I want to make one little disclaimer. It didn't, I don't want to suggest that it cured my postpartum depression. It's really important for me to say that. But I will say that I believe that because I found this purpose, I really started on a journey of healing at that point. So that's what I mean. But when I put that part of the story in, it's not to say that, oh, chickens cure, disease. No, but they can really make a difference in your life. They can give you meaning.
Yeah. And well, it's just the purpose part, right? Like once you find that purpose outside of yourself and your role of motherhood, I think I want to say from an outsider's perspective, as a child-free by choice person, from an outsider's perspective, I feel as though when people become parents, it is forced upon them that this is going to be my entire personality now, is just this. And we can't forget ourselves in that. And I think a lot of people do. And if it's a chicken for you or for me, like I have goats. I don't have chickens, I have goats. And I have a Bernese mountain dog named Kevin, and he is my whole personality. So it can be anything and it can be outside of the box. And something that I've been talking about as of recent, I recently did a series of interviews with farm kids and talking to them about like, what do you want to do when you grow up and that kind of thing. And like you said, you didn't lay in bed as a child thinking like, I want to grow up and be a chicken educator or anything like
Yes.
that. I also didn't grow up thinking that I was going to A, be a farmer, B, ever talk into a microphone or any of these things. And so when we think about it, it's like we have the opportunity to pave our own way. And that is what you've done. And, you know, you talked about mourning your old life. And I very much went through the same journey coming into agriculture and coming into farming because that I didn't grow up this way. I married a charming farmer who I think tricked me into this, but I really did. I really mourned my old life and wanting to hold on to that. And all that did was create basically chaos within myself and for those around me. So yeah, thank you again for sharing all of that. That hit me right in the feels. We have a saying here on the podcast, Caitlin gets misty, the waterworks start. But chickens, man, it's so funny to me because we talk about them being kind of like in agriculture, the gateway drug. Like if you are on a farm or if you're on an acreage or have any type of property, what is the first animal that you get? And 9 times out of 10, people will say chickens. Talk to me about, you know, getting into this. And back then, obviously, you were doing this more for yourself versus what you're doing today. But what are some of, I guess, the cost of entry that you talk about when you're talking to people about starting chicken keeping?
Well, I've kind of made it my mission, especially since, and I think was it 2022 or 2023? It was the spring where we had that big egg shortage and the price of eggs skyrocketed. And during that time, a lot of people, some educators were talking about how expensive it is to keep chickens. And it can absolutely be. My husband used to say, oh, each egg cost $100. It's like literally the chickens that laid golden eggs, or you would be hoping after you eat them, can I please lay some golden eggs after I eat these to make up for the cost? And I've certainly spent a lot of money on my chickens. I did not do it in a frugal way. But now, especially after that happened, and I saw a lot of discouragement really from from educators, just saying that you shouldn't get into this because it's expensive. And really what they're saying, and probably they don't know that this is what they're saying, and they have good intentions, is that they're perpetuating a dependence on factory farms. And so for me, it's very important for me to point out that if you go to literally the poorest places in the world, you can go to the most impoverished places in the world, find the poorest people in the world, and you will also find their chickens. So this is something that is very important that we need to remember, that throughout the ages, chickens have been with us through famine, through war, through natural disaster, all of these things that were hard for just us to survive. They helped us to survive through it. So there are absolutely ways for this to be accessible for everyone. And so when people are talking to me about getting into it, number one, I will tell them it is easy. You absolutely can do this. It is something that is in just about all of our ancestry. We all have it. If you talk to if you could go back in time and talk to your grandmother, your great grandmother, they're going to say, I had chickens. That was something that was just part of our life. So it's literally like in us. It's very a very traditional thing. So just don't try and reinvent the wheel. Keep it simple and remember that chickens are very resilient and pretty self-sufficient as well. They need a few things. They need food, they need water, they need to be protected from the elements and from predators. There are many different ways of keeping chickens. There's the Chickenlandia way, but it's not the only way. So I will tell people, find a way that works for you. And as long as you are not, harming chickens or harming others, or, with what you're doing, it's good with me.
So can you give us a brief overview then of what is the Chickenlandia way of keeping chickens?
Well, I certainly lean very natural. I try not to do like preemptive medications. I don't like preemptively deworm my flock. I don't give them medicated feed. Generally, I try to keep their experience as close to a natural experience as possible. So, from the time that they're baby chicks, I really try to give them exposure to the outside world. I try not to, there is some thought that, oh, you have to like really keep them from wild birds and stuff. And of course, you don't want wild birds coming in and eating your feed and like, okay, I guess I'm feeding the whole neighborhood now. You don't want that. And there are things that they can get from wild birds. They can get parasites. There are illnesses that wild birds carry. But ultimately, chickens belong in nature. That is their natural state. They are supposed to be outside participating in the ecosystem. And so I really encourage people not to think about it as something that is separate from the natural world, but you're participating in the natural world when you have your flock outside, which is where they're supposed to be. So I try not to, focus on keeping the chickens completely separate from nature because it's futile, and also I think ultimately it's not good for chickens. Like, they need to build resilience. So yeah, I think it's not perfect. The Chickenlandia way is not perfect because it shouldn't be perfect. No way is perfect. The Chickenlandia way will change. If I see that something isn't working, I will change it. And I will always encourage people to, number one, I have in my book, I have I think it's six, six rules for mindful chicken keeping. And the number one rule is listen to your heart. Because first of all, every flock is different. Every coop is different. Every piece of land is different. You have your own very unique situation in front of you. And inevitably, there will be something that comes up that is unique to your experience. And you may go online, you might go on Facebook and go into the chicken Facebook group or whatever and say, oh, my chicken is this and that. What do I do? And you'll get 10 different answers. And some of them will be cull your whole flock and burn your coop down or something. It can get really extreme. And in those situations, I really tell people, because they can get really confused. It's like, listen to your heart, listen to your intuition. Remember, we've been doing this for a long time. This is inside you. So if something doesn't feel right, no matter who's telling you that, even if it's me, if it doesn't feel like the right thing for you to do, then don't do it and do what feels right. And sometimes you're going to make mistakes, but that's part of it. We've all made mistakes. It's okay. So yeah, I don't even remember the question, but
that answered it. I promise you did good.
Okay, good.
That leads me perfectly into what my next question is. This is not your first rodeo with chickens. You are on many rodeos, but for somebody just starting out, like you said, it can feel overwhelming, and maybe that intuition piece isn't there for you quite yet. And you kind of build up to the intuition, to knowing what you're supposed to be doing. What are some common mistakes that you see folks making starting out with chickens?
One thing I see a lot is people will look at chickens like they look at people. So chickens are just different. They're flock animals. They operate as a flock and not in the way humans operate as individuals. Humans are very social. We also operate that way, but we also have a very strong individuality of each of us. Chickens aren't really like that. Their instincts are always geared towards what is the best thing for the flock. So when you're observing your flock, you might see especially if you're integrating younger chickens in with older chickens, there's a whole process that you need to follow because flock dynamics are real. Like the pecking order is real. And actually, young chickens can get hurt or killed if you just throw them into a new flock of grumpy old hens. So, even when you're integrating them and you're using this process, you're going to see some working out of the pecking order, and it's not going to look great. Like chickens are going to be chasing each other. Chickens are going to peck each other on the head. Chickens will be scolding each other. They'll squabble a little bit. They'll fight a little bit. And for a lot of people, especially people that have not had a lot of experience with farm animals and with chickens, they will look at that and they'll be like, "Oh my gosh," they'll intervene on it a lot. And what happens is that the chickens are never allowed to work out their system and go through those rituals that they need to go through to figure out their where they are on the pecking order. So a lot of times I'll tell people just, are they drawing blood? No, they're not drawing blood. Okay. Are they like starving each other? Are they really keeping each other from food and water? Well, they're chasing each other from the food bowl. Okay. Put a few different food bowls out there, put a few different water stations out there, and then walk away for 15 minutes, walk away, then come back and see how they're doing. Okay. And then after a while, you can walk away for an hour and then come back. And when they allow their chickens, when they understand that this is their nature, there's always going to be somebody on the top and there's always going to be somebody on the bottom. And human beings, even though we act very, I don't even know how to say it. We're very competitive when we act very capitalist and everything. Like in reality, we are always looking for fairness. And I know this because I have just seen it so many times. We're always looking for things to be fair. And people will say, "It's not fair. My one chicken is on the bottom. My one chicken is she's a grouch, she's bossing everybody around." It's like, that is the chicken way. That's their experience. And they're experiencing it as chickens, not as humans. So remember that. Of course, any severe situation, we're human beings. We're going to step in and try and fix it. And there are things that you can do if you're having bullying problems in your flock and stuff like that. But I just really encourage people, just look at that. Remember, they are chickens. They're living a natural experience outside. They've got one foot in the Jurassic period.
Little dinosaurs with feathers. That's how I see them.
Yes. Yes. So remember that. And also remember, they're probably not too cold unless it's really cold. Like there are you're from Canada, that there are places that are like unbelievably cold. But most of the time, depending on the type of chickens you have, if they're cold hardy chickens, they do fine in the cold.
Right, for sure. Well,
yeah.
I'm curious, what kind of chickens do you have in your flock? I would be remiss not to ask you about your own personal chickens. What kind do you have?
I have, because of what chickens have done for me, they really have fulfilled my life in a way that I didn't know was possible. I rescue a lot of chickens. And I basically have like a retirement home for chickens. So as a result, I have I have chickens that are missing feathers. I have chickens that they look terrible. They're like really, really poorly bred. Their feathers are all curly and they're called frazzles. I have chickens that are chronically ill and chickens that have special needs. I also have special needs ducks. But I have a lot of bantams. I've got a lot of little itty bitty tiny chickens. I do have a weakness. I just, I say I have a weakness for chocolate and for tiny chickens. So I have a lot of like itty bitty full grown chickens. And then I have just your regular layer girls. They're out there laying their eggs and doing their thing every day. So, and I have a few roosters too, but it's a very diverse flock, very diverse. And I've taken chickens from all over the place, even from out of state. So don't get a lot of baby chicks. Sometimes we have baby chicks, but very rarely. Usually it's grown chickens that are coming in to my flock from some situation where they just need to be somewhere.
Yeah, I love that. And the big heart of taking in the ones that maybe, aren't the most ideal for the average chicken keeper.
Yes. And, that being said, like I have, when I'm speaking as an educator, I'm not just speaking to the people who would never cull their chickens, or never eat their chickens. I'm speaking to anyone that is raising chickens. And so that's another example of just like, this is the Chickenlandia way. I've got all these chickens. Some of them don't do anything but squawk and lay an egg at once a month, I can afford to do that. A lot of people can't.
Right.
A lot of people have to have their chickens. They are there to serve a purpose. And I 100% respect that.
Well, and I think, as a farmer and as someone who has livestock and has owned different types of livestock before, I think the greatest gift that you can give an animal, whether it is your pet, whether it is livestock, whether any kind of animal, if you can allow and assist that animal to live out its purpose, whatever that purpose is, if it is for a pet to live its best life, to give it all the love all day. If it is livestock and its purpose is to feed people, whether that's through an egg or whether that's through its body, giving that animal the best life you can, that is the job of a farmer. That is the job of a rancher. That is the job of a chicken keeper. All of these things, just allowing that animal to live its best life. And if it has that no good, very bad day, and you gave it the best life you could, and it just had that one bad day, I think it did okay.
Yeah. Yes, I agree. I agree.
Hey, small business owners, are you feeling overwhelmed by the countless ways to advertise your brand online? Me too. A powerful tool that you might be overlooking: Pinterest. Did you know that Pinterest is the third largest search engine right behind Google and YouTube? With 500 million people using Pinterest every month, it's a goldmine for small business owners like us. Whether you're looking to drive more traffic to your website, grow your email list, or increase product sales, Pinterest can help you achieve your goals. Shireen from Pinning by Bad Gringa is an experienced Pinterest strategist and an avid woman in agriculture who is passionate about helping small business owners like us unlock the full potential of Pinterest. Pinterest is a visual discovery engine. It's perfect for showcasing your products and driving targeted traffic to your website, and Shireen is here to guide you every step of the way. With Shireen's expertise, you'll learn how to create effective Pinterest strategies tailored to your business needs, from increasing website traffic to growing your email list and boosting sales. Don't miss out on the opportunity to transform your marketing strategy with Pinterest. Visit the link in today's show notes and start leveraging the power of Pinterest to grow your business. Pinning by Bad Gringa, helping women in agriculture and small business owners succeed with Pinterest. So, I want to talk about what are some key lessons that you have learned through your experience as a chicken keeper and also an educator?
When I started keeping chickens, I would go out into the chicken yard and I could be angry, I could be, not feeling great, I could be feeling anxious, whatever. I go out there and within a few minutes I am feeling peace. And there's just something about being out in the chicken yard and watching them kind of peck and scratch, and they're making their little noises and they're doing their funny things. They each have their little funny personalities and stuff. There is something about that that is almost like a meditation for me. And when I first got chickens, I started talking to people about that. Like, I really feel peace in the chicken yard. And they're like, yeah, we know. And it didn't matter like where this person was from, how old they were, what their religion was, what their political affiliation was. They understood this kind of universal thing. And so that's when I started to say, it really looks like chickens are humankind's most amazing common denominator. And and that was really what inspired my TEDx talk, because I realized that I could be outside with my chickens, feeling the peace of the chicken yard. And there could be somebody on the other side of the world who maybe looks completely different than me, has a completely different life than I do. That's how I would perceive it, that they're so different and they're having the same experience. And so I really have tried to use chickens to bring people together, and especially as divided as we've gotten, when I did my TEDx talk, it was in 2017. I thought there's no way our country could get more divided than it is now. Wow. I did not know, then we went through COVID and everything, and, everything that's going on right now. And it's like, it's kind of my mission to remind people to, kind of look past that noise and remember the things that we have in common, that we're all kind of suffering from, and especially not all of us, because some of us are still, some people have carried on generations of farming and working the land, and having that kind of lifestyle. But most of us have been severed from that. And, in my own life, my family's from Guatemala. There was a very terrible civil war that happened there. There was a severance of our culture, from it was over bananas, believe it or not. And so there was like this severance from our food and from our culture. And whenever you sever somebody from their food, you're severing them from their culture. Like they're so intertwined. And so my family came to the United States. My parents, they were working. They couldn't even have a garden. I mean, they were working like crazy. I grew up without any connection to my food. So I'm like suffering from that severance. And if I go to, if I walk down the street and I talk to anybody, just about anyone, I could say, hey, can you find the place in your history where you were disconnected from nature, where you were taken away from where you came from? And just about everybody will have some kind of unique experience, that is similar to that. And so that's another thing that I want people to think about and examine. And it's not to invalidate, anyone's experience. It's to really kind of build empathy for each other. So yeah, I think that's probably the most important lesson I learned from the chicken yard, and one that I'm really trying to help other people understand. I want them to see not just that, oh, it's fun to keep chickens, because it is fun and you get eggs, but also it means something. There's meaning there. And that's what I want to focus on.
Yeah. And those are all like, that is the biggest connection that you can make from that, right? We are more the same than we are different, and
Yes.
Food brings us all together, and it doesn't matter where you're from. Everybody's got to eat. So
yes. Yes.
I want to talk more. You had mentioned a book. You recently published a book. So tell us all about it.
I did. It's called Let's All Keep Chickens, because I really want that. I want everyone to keep chickens. I want to see chickens in cities and suburbs. I want to see community chickens in apartment buildings. I want to see chickens on the roofs and on skyscrapers, So yeah, I really believe in like making it, like we talked about at the beginning, just making this practice very accessible for everybody. So in the book, I definitely lean in that direction, and also lean in a natural direction when it comes to chicken keeping. So yeah, that hit the shelves in February of 2023. I also have an online course. Gosh, when did that one happen? I think that was 2022 when I put that out. That's basically like you can take it at your own pace and you can ask me questions in it. It's got videos, it's interactive. So there's that, and lots of I realized I did like the whole like homeschooling podcast circuit, because I realized that a lot of homeschoolers were using my course as like part of their curriculum. So that was wild. And so I was like, whoa, that's great. I love that. So that happened. Also, in the middle of COVID, I started my podcast. It's called Bawk Talk. That's BAWKTAWK. So that's going. And then, like I said, my biggest platform is my YouTube channel, which is called Welcome to Chickenlandia. And all of these things can be found on my website, which is welcometochickenlandia.com.
And we are going to link all of the things that you do in the show notes so people can find it and connect with you and learn all about the Chickenlandia way of raising chickens. And Dalia, I'm slightly more of a chicken person now than I was 38 minutes ago. So
mission accomplished.
Mission accomplished. Sorry, Justin, my husband, for that. Honey, build me a chicken coop.
Yes, resistance is futile.
It has been absolutely wonderful getting to chat with you and learn more about your story. And I really, talking to you and learning about, the passion that you have for chickens, it warms my heart when I get to hear people who are living their passion, and you surely are. My last question for you, Dalia, is what is the most rewarding part about being the president of Chickenlandia for you?
Yesterday, I went to, was that yesterday or the day before yesterday? I went to go meet some people that they raise saramas, and the woman was like, hey, I want to give you this one sarama. She's kind of, she's been pulling her feathers a little bit, or no, other chickens have been pulling her feathers. She's kind of getting beat up a little bit, but I think she would be great in Chickenlandia. And so I went and I met her, and I met her husband. We met in like a parking lot. And I say, like, these are the best drug deals. Like, just hand over the chicken. So we met in this parking lot, and they came out and they gave me this chicken, and they told me, you're the reason I do, we're doing what we're doing. We really have been so inspired and so encouraged by you. And this year has not, I've had some health stuff this year. I've really struggled with some things that I feel are like holding me back from doing everything I want to do. But when I hear stuff like that, it just makes everything so worth it. And they were just delightful people. And I'm so glad that I can have that effect on people. And yeah, to me, it's like that's really a dream come true.
For sure. That's the good stuff. That's the good stuff right there. So again, for the folks listening, if they would like to connect with you online, where should they go?
Go to welcometochickenlandia.com. You're going to find everything there. Everything.
And friends, there's a lot of things there. You do a lot of things. So thank you again so much for sharing your story with us today. I truly appreciate it.
You're so welcome. And thank you so much for having me on.
Thanks for listening to the Rural Woman Podcast. The Rural Woman Podcast is more than just a podcast. We are a community. A huge thank you to the Rural Woman Podcast team, audio editor Max Hofer, and admin support from Kim & Co. Online. A special thanks to our Patreon executive producers, Sarah Riedner from Happiness by the Acre and Carrie Munven from Laystone Farms. To learn how you can become a Patreon executive producer or other ways to financially support the show, head on over to wildrosefarmer.com to learn more. Be sure to hit the follow or subscribe button wherever you listen to the podcast to get the latest episodes directly on your playlist. And if you are loving the show, please be sure to leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or any other platform that accepts ratings and reviews. You can connect with us on social media at The Rural Woman Podcast and with me at Wild Rose Farmer. One of the best ways you can support the show is by sharing it. Send this episode to a friend or share on your social media. Let's strengthen and amplify the voices of women in agriculture together. Until next time, my friend, keep sharing your story.